Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to this Vision Committee meeting of July 21st, 2021. May we have a roll call, please?
Good evening, certainly. Councilmember Dennehy? Councilmember Gonzalez? Councilmember Jaquez? Councilmember Reed? Councilmember Schmischer?
Present.
Councilmember Brandon Smith? Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
Here.
Mayor Ashley Smith?
Gee,
Here. I'm here.
thank you. We do have one small adjustment to our agenda. We're going to have Fremont Adventure Recreation present first, followed by the Lockwood Foundation, followed by the Fremont County Tourism Council presentation. Ryan, are you, or do we?
Yeah, we will just turn it over to Ashley Sack with Fremont Adventure Recreation. Ashley, you might need to push the button on your...
Like that? Can you hear me now? Okay, thank you so much for having me here tonight. We are excited to present to council, not only just to check in and say hello, it's been a long, almost 2 years, I think, since we've really been in person to say hi, and also to present the information we have regarding the extension of the trail systems and whatnot. So far update and plans, we'd like to start off by just giving you the next slide, if you would. Oh, do I need a clicker? Oh, jeez. I'm trying to order Brandon now. Thanks, Brandon. Oh, there we go. So we just want to check in and let you know what we've been up to. We know so many of you attend a lot of our events, so you see firsthand what we're doing, but we wanted to let you know what we've been up to in the last 2 years. So we had, during COVID, during 2020, we had a couple of virtual events that went over very well, so we were excited to encourage and support our outdoor recreation community by getting them outside and participating in events even though they were virtual. So we had a virtual Royal 50, we had a virtual Run Blossom, which both were a lot of fun. And we've also, early this year, we had a community fundraiser to fund The Yard, which is a mountain bike skills park that is located at the Eagle Wing Trailhead of the South Canyon Trail System. And we raised over $15,000 through private donors, and that's everyone from local school kids who raised money to some business members and businesses that donated larger sums of money, and we are incredibly grateful, and we're thankful for your support and the support of the rec department, Rex Brady and his crew, Jesse, everybody down there helped us a tremendous amount, and also the Canyon City Area Recreation Department helped as well. So that is open, and we have seen a tremendous number of young people and older people like myself trying to do it, but a lot of the kiddos are just flying through there, and it looks like a lot of fun, so we're happy to have that open. We've had some spring goose chase scavenger events, which this council did offer us a grant for, so we were happy to encourage folks to get out and do some scavenger hunts that were both responsible and fun. So thank you again for supporting us in that endeavor, and we will continue to do those throughout the next year as they were pretty popular. It's a little hot right now to get people out, but we'll start that up again fairly soon. So that's what we've been up to. We also have a busy year ahead of us as we look towards kind of reclaiming some of that funding that we lost in 2020. We have the majority of our normal events happening this year, and we were also adding some of the events that correlate to the 150th celebration. We're very excited about the possibility to have some events that support the history and the outdoor recreation of our community during that celebration. So we have our gala fundraiser, a Point Alta Vista 5K utilizing a very popular new trailhead that the city has supported since day one when we suggested that we refurbish the trestles. So I think all of us at this point at this meeting will be talking about the Point Alta Vista trestles. We have the Royal 50 mountain bike races coming up. We're collaborating with the Fremont Center for the Arts for a vintage bike show and some other activities. More goose chase events. We have the Resolution Run coming up on January 1st. 150th celebration events, continued support of the Royal Cascade, the trail, the trail that has a million names at this point, that will go from Tunnel Drive to the top of Fremont Peak. Very excited about that. Of course, trail builder Steve Thomas is on a hiatus due to the lambing, and we are working with CPW to make sure that we are utilizing newsletters and posts to make sure that folks understand why that is closed during this time and why it supports our wildlife population, that we adhere to that. And what the most important thing we want to talk about tonight is planning for the South Rim Trail. So that's really what this presentation is about tonight. So way back in before 2013, when we had the Royal Gorge Fire, it was entirely possible to ride and access the south rim of the Royal Gorge Bridge and Park. Usually, I think you could access it via vehicle, and you could also access it in different ways. So what we're looking at is revitalizing that access to include bike traffic. We have a number of gravel ride routes within our community, and if you own a copy of the Adventure Guide, you'll find a few of these in there. Very popular among what I like to call crazy people who do 100 miles or more, or some shorter routes that are really fun for folks who are training, folks who just want to get away from roads, which can be very dangerous, especially in our area. And not necessarily on single track, which can be a little more technical and difficult. So gravel offers kind of this balance between the two, which is really beautiful, a lot of fun, and can really get you off the beaten path. So we look at the South Canyon Gravel Ride as one option in this area. The Red Canyon Road Ride is another option which currently exists. And that goes up over Skyline. There's a number of routes you can take. We have an opportunity to add a new gravel route, and that would utilize Temple Canyon Road and then access the south side of the Royal Gorge Bridge and Park, and then continue on down single track utilizing the Royal Cascade trail system or existing single track or Highway 50, whatever folks want to do. But we are looking to explore the possibility of opening that south rim of the Royal Gorge Bridge and Park to bicycle access. So right now the Royal Gorge Bridge and Park connects to two world-class trail systems and parks. That includes the Royal Gorge Trails, which at this point we have about 22 miles of trail. That's single track trail, which is of varying degrees of difficulty from beginner, so your average easy, to advanced, which is your black diamond trails. And those are attracting a lot of attention from both local citizens and also visitors from across the state and the country as a world-class trail system. And then the Royal Gorge also, of course, once the Royal Cascade is done, will technically connect to the Riverwalk and also to South Canyon. So you really could access well over 40 miles of trail once those two actually connect. And that continuity is very important, because if you're a mountain bike rider or you're a gravel rider, if you can get a 10-mile loop, that's fun, and you'll go home at the end of the day. But if you can do a 60-mile loop or a 100-mile loop, you're going to stay, and you're going to camp, and you're going to spend money at gas stations, and you're going to spend money at restaurants. I know this comes as a surprise, but mountain bikers drink a lot of beers. So they do spend a lot of money. They shop downtown, and sodas, I'm sure. So we're looking at this as an opportunity to boost our downtown environment, so we get these bikers and travelers and outdoor recreationists to come, stay, play, do all the things we talk about at FCTC. I know it's all interconnected, it's crazy. So yes. So one route, and if you're not a map person, I have to ride everything to understand it, but here's the map if this makes a lot of sense to you. So essentially starting at Centennial Park, you can go up Temple Canyon Road, which is great for gravel riding. You might say to yourself, what about the washboard? What about the upkeep? It's fantastic. We don't need smooth, perfect roads. In fact, that's kind of a detraction, right? We want nice roads that are maintained, but it doesn't have to be perfection. It's a gravel road, that's the point. And then hits trail systems, and then roughly 25 miles, and then you would go up to the roads behind the south rim of the Royal Gorge, and then over and down, and you can see the rest. So, and there also, once we get a single track option, which we'll talk about in a minute, that could also include single track trails as well. So first off, I understand that Moab is not in Colorado. I'm sorry, typo, I was probably up late doing this. In any case, some similar routes that exist nearby include Moab. The whole enchilada is a very popular route that folks love to come from different areas and visit Moab and do that really long ride, exhaust themselves, and again, stay and play and relax and spend some time in Moab. In Palisade, our neighbor down across the way, they've just recently opened the Palisade Plunge, which is a 32-mile trail. 32-mile trail, very similar, so it's a long distance, long ride. Folks really enjoy that kind of ride. That's a full day adventure, a full day of fun. And then, of course, outside of Salida, there's the Monarch Crest, which is another long ride. Folks come from miles and miles around to enjoy this ride, stay, spend money in Salida, and hopefully do more. So ours, because we are in the Banana Belt, will be open longer and for more of the year than any of these. So we really feel like this is an option, and I can attest to this personally. This is something I do in the winter when the trails are muddy, because we don't ride muddy trails. You can ride these gravel routes, and it offers you an option to stay in shape. It offers you an option to get outside, and you're not mucking up your bike, and you're definitely not destroying single-track trails. So this is an option that folks from across the state and beyond could come and utilize in the off seasons, mud season in the spring or winter, and come out here and enjoy our beautiful gravel rides when they can't do so elsewhere. We believe, and we have some quick poll results, we believe that this route would benefit not only our downtown community, but it would also benefit the Royal Gorge Bridge and Park. We think that it would increase their visitation. It would be like almost a new demographic. So folks who are coming to bike, which right now you can, they are very kind. They let us bike across the bridge if we do bring bikes, which is wonderful, but this would add kind of make it part of a route instead of just a destination you stop, you ride across for fun. So we really feel like a new demographic would start visiting the bridge to incorporate it into this entire gravel route. And of course, the riding across the bridge is a novelty that you cannot replicate anywhere else. So we feel that it would be something that cyclists and ultra runners and other outdoor recreation folks would travel long distances to do, and our local folks would enjoy it as well, of course. So we did this is the briefest of polls. This is not any kind of scientific poll. This is just to give you an idea that I have put it out to some local individuals. Would this be of interest to you? So the ones that responded on Facebook, and I am more than happy to do any further research that is more specific and scientific in nature. This is just kind of a off the cuff. But there was interest. There were a number of people who said they would absolutely use it. They would definitely stop and buy food. They would buy a pass. They're happy to pay. We don't want to, a free pass necessarily. We certainly don't want the Royal Gorge Bridge and Park to lose revenue. That's not what we're after. Or they could offer like a one-day pass. So if you don't want to do the entire bridge, most cyclists aren't going to leave their bike that's more expensive than my car. They're not going to leave that, to go do some of the other things like the gondola and the children's playland. So if they're just passing through, which is also something the bridge has done before, just passing through, maybe it's just a $10 fee. Anyway, open to ideas, but definitely we're excited to see that some of our local riders were interested in doing that. Of course, we are on board. We will offer our full support with the years of experience we have in both planning, communication with our community, and of course, communication and collaboration with you, City Council. And we would hope that the city would be on board to continue to invest in some of our mountain bike infrastructure. I think we've done an incredible job of collaborating over the last few years, and we have some of the finest trails in Colorado due to that collaboration. So we hope to continue that relationship and that open communication. So right now, as you well know, we have over 62 miles of single track. We have hundreds of miles of gravel road from Oak Creek Grade to Temple Canyon, you name it, it's around. And of course, the connector trail will be finished hopefully by fall. Hopefully, everyone's crossing their fingers. So that will also help us to create some more loops and some options and things that people will enjoy to do. So just so you know that we aren't operating in a silo here. This isn't a harebrained idea that FAR has dreamed up over some conversation at a board meeting. This is a statewide effort and even nationwide as we start looking at longer routes for individuals to take. The Colorado Tourism Office has partnered with Bicycle Colorado, which is a statewide organization, in promoting low-impact tourism. So gravel riding falls into that. And so this is perfect timing for our particular region to hop on that bandwagon. Obviously, the CTO is a huge supporter of our community through funding and grants. And to partner with them on this, it offers us the added bonus of having ready-made rhetoric, ready-made materials. We can kind of work with them as we navigate this process. VistaWorks, which of course is headed by Brian to my right here, is also working with that project. So we work integrally with him. I work with him on the FCTC, so there would be great communication between these entities that would just really facilitate some growth and movement. Montezuma County, I just wanted to draw your attention. They have a pilot project. They're developing a whole bunch of gravel road and options for folks to find those via GPS apps, via a whole bunch of other avenues. So this is something that is happening across the state, and it would be fantastic if our region could do the same. We don't anticipate, and you can, where am I? I don't know where I am at time. We don't anticipate too much infrastructure change. As I said, this was an option before the fire in 2013, and I know that staffing is very difficult right now for everybody. So of course, we suggest this in the knowledge that it would definitely be an additional person probably at the south rim, and if not, it would require a little more attentiveness at the north rim gate. So we understand that there would be some changes that we would be requesting of the Royal Gorge Bridge and Park. So we'd be happy to work with them or help with communication or whatever we can do. But as I said, we're not looking for a free meal ticket. We definitely understand that folks who utilize this option would have to pay in some way. So hopefully that will pay for itself. And of course, FAR would be more than happy to assist with any signage needed, with communication with our users. We would put information in our adventure guide, working with FCTC to push out that information on the Royal Gorge Region website, whatever it takes to help inform people of the rules and the regulations, use it, don't abuse it kind of language. We're happy to do that. So we would promote this as an option for our visitors, again, to boost our local economy, get folks coming downtown, get them to stay at our camping, our lodging areas, and we would use all of the opportunities that we have as a local nonprofit, and obviously working with FCTC, we would get the word out about our exceptional routes to use them to our best advantage. Of course, we have been working, we met with the Bureau of Land Management and Colorado Parks and Wildlife to explore the option of having a single track option. So utilizing South Canyon Trails that goes up to the Watchtower, extending the Watchtower, which is the top of Great Escape, extending that to the south rim of the gorge, which of course is the Grand Canyon Hills, and offering a single track option so folks could stay completely off the roads and access that south rim from single track trails also. So those conversations have started, and we're excited to move forward with those in the next few years. So this, of course, is all part of our Royal Loop Connect initiative. This is an older map, but it does show kind of the process and the plan that has been in place for a number of years. We're just moving forward with ideas that were born years ago, and we're ready to continue those conversations. So you can see that those include the route we just talked about. One thing Brian did tell me to note is that the Moore parcel, which is H, is not something we're exploring at this time due to the fact that the Royal Cascade is now being constructed. That negates the need for the Moore parcel. So as I said, this is an old map. I apologize. I don't want anyone to think that we are actively pursuing the Moore parcel, because it's kind of a moot point at this point now that we have the Royal Cascade. So that makes it all feasible, makes it all possible, and makes it a dream that could very easily be a reality in the next few years. So I just pulled some other websites and other articles so that you, if you're not one of those long-distance gravel riders, that you could take a look at some articles that folks have written about the positive experiences that they have, the positive growth of this particular sport, and the way that our community could embrace this and use it to our best advantage. So there's one from 5280, which is, of course, based out of Denver. Steamboat Springs is promoting their gravel riding. Is that it? That must be it. So I think that's it. Other than that, I do want to mention that you all know me as a community member, and I can tell you that I'm very excited about this, not just for myself, but as our mountain bike community grows. And I'm speaking really about our kiddos. If you know that Kristen Ledoux and Vicki Meyer and Sean Wetherill have taken on the roles of guiding our high school mountain bike club. And this is really exciting because this is just one more sport, one more activity that we are offering to our youth of Canyon City to carry them into adulthood. And this is a multifaceted activity that they can get involved in trail work, they can get involved in their community. So, holy smokes, I don't think I'm doing that. So in any case, offering these routes and continuing to grow this sport is very exciting as both a community member and also a mom and someone who is looking forward to watching this area grow and expand and embrace its outdoor recreation opportunities.
60 seconds.
Do it, Brian. Add it.
I'm going to add 60 seconds to it. I had no idea Ashley was even going to do any of this, but gravel biking, we're getting in on the cusp of this growth of a new industry. I'm not prepared with the exact statistics, but something like 150% increase in purchase of gravel-specific bikes compared to any other type of bike on the market shows interest in what this is. Bicycle Colorado, we've been working with them. They're super excited about creating these routes. The Montezuma project that Ashley mentioned is complete, and we can show examples of that. And she happened to show an article from written by Sarah Kuda at the Denver Post. We've got a great relationship with her, so when these routes get developed and we're ready to promote them, she'll be on board to write some articles that promote the area.
Look at the synergy.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
So some questions? You ready for some questions on this
Yes,
comment?
absolutely.
Mhm.
Did I come in right at 20? That was pretty good. Okay. Yes.
No, go ahead.
First off, I just want to thank you. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for taking the time to brief us on what your plans are, what your vision is. And also just thank you to FAR for everything that you do for our community. As a green trail only on single tracks, but avid river bike, gravel bike rider, I'm super excited about this idea, and I think that it really would bring a lot more to our community and really would enhance what we already have, which I think is absolutely fantastic. I'd love to hear a little bit more about what the city can do to help. I know that you mentioned some help in terms of the bridge and kind of renegotiating and reworking some of that, but also, are there other pieces that you're looking for help or support on? What can we do to better partner with you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Can I phone a friend? Brian? You can start that one.
Yeah, I think that the simple answer is the political pressure. We obviously work with a lot of land management agencies that have their take and grasp, and I think that the community expressively saying, yes, this is something we would like to see happen, particularly with that BLM side of things, would be great. If the elected officials were behind it, I think that weighs heavily on some of those decisions. In addition, just the support the city has with Steve Thomas and the trail building and the Parks Department, continue that. That has been in utmost importance to getting what we have here today. So.
Thank you, Brian. Are there specific points within, I think that this was your 2020 to 2022 plan, which I view 2020 as the lost year due to COVID, but are there specific points in this plan where you view that need for political pressure and kind of engagement with land management agencies as particularly important, or are those details still to be fleshed out?
I think it's early in that conversation, but I think it's always helps that, hey, anytime you network with anyone, just like, hey, this is something the community, would be interested in seeing happen. And I think you can point to the Palisade Plunge and say, hey, that's been a very long process, but it's something that the city and the BLM and the Forest Service work together on very well, and it's going to be an incredible draw for them. And I think, the Royal Loop for us would be something very similar, and that's, so just continue that pressure of of moving that project forward. So.
And then I guess I'd also just like to have a little bit more clarity in terms of the Royal Loop and the piece that is still needed. Is it just being able to access the Royal Gorge Bridge on the south side? How much of the gravel trail is already in place? Is there additional gravel trail that would need to be built? I understand that there's additional single track that would need to be built, but just curious about a little bit more detail on that as well.
Yeah, I think from a gravel perspective, it's there today. You know, it's just the locked gate and access type stuff. For single track option, there's 3 to 4 miles left in the city's Temple Canyon Park, and then there's 6 to 8 miles left on the BLM's Grand Canyon Hills, and then on the south rim in the Royal Gorge Park, there's about a mile left for that full connection. In addition to the Royal Cascade actually being finished later this year.
Yeah, and BLM has said that we're a few years out from even getting the approval for the single track. But as Brian mentioned, the gravel, the Temple Canyon Road is done. We don't need any additional infrastructure support or financial support in that area other than the actual access. But obviously, Ryan and I talked about involving the bridge, of course, in this conversation at some point. I did alert them, albeit a little late, that we were going to be talking about this. But obviously, this is a conversation we're excited to have with them.
Ryan, would you be able to speak at all? I mean, from my perspective, it seems like this fits into Picture 2040 beautifully, but would you be able to speak at all to the bridge aspect of it? And I realize that we're very, very, very early, and it's very,
we've had I've had some initial conversations with the bridge, just planting seeds, letting them know that, this ask is going to be coming at some point, and start thinking about, what do you have to do from an operational standpoint to try and make something like this work. So we've had some of those initial conversations. I think, as Ashley said, there's more work to be done, and additional conversations about the details. What are they going to ask? What are their requirements? Things like that, to make sure that it's, as Ashley said, that they're fairly compensated for what they have to put into it, but also from a safety standpoint. I know bike riders ride across now, but those were some of the early things that they raised, just making sure that there's those safety precautions in place.
Are there ways that council can be helpful in those conversations or moving that ball forward at all?
I think it depends on where we get in those conversations. So certainly a possibility, absolutely.
So one of the things that kind of caught my attention is when you were talking about making it an overnight trek on the trails, and of course the thought comes to mind, the city has a new campground essentially, and you all might put some thought into what might make that a more biker-friendly stopover for these purposes, because it seems to me there could be a little bit of synergy there with a little bit of adjustment on our part to help promote this, and don't necessarily think in a counterclockwise direction. You might want to be going clockwise on that trail. Okay, great. Thank you, Ashley. I guess we're ready to hear from you, Jeffrey Lockwood. Is that correct? Mm-hmm.
All right. So first off, I want to introduce myself. My name is Jeffrey Lockwood. I want to thank the City Council as well as everyone present and watching online for allowing me to speak here today and kind of explain what the Lockwood Foundation does and how we're trying to be part of Canyon City's recreation and add adaptive recreation to this picture. Again, my name is Jeffrey Lockwood, and I'm the founder and executive director of the Lockwood Foundation. A little bit about me. I have about 10 years background in in-home healthcare, primarily with people with diverse abilities. 10 years in the backpacking, mountaineering, wilderness experience world, as well as 4 years as a permitted mountain guide in the state of Colorado through our federal lands, our Forest Service. With that, 4 years ago, or 3 years ago, we're in our 4th year, I decided to start a crazy, wild organization that helps people, effectively wheelchair users, get out onto the trails and into the backcountry. Pretty wild idea, and quite frankly, crazy at the time. Today we look back and we go, what's crazier? We've already done all that stuff. So to give you, I'm going to give you my mission statement, our mission statement, and then I'm going to have this video played because I think it'll explain more than our mission statement. But for the record, the Lockwood Foundation is a community of volunteers who help create access to the trails and mountains for people with limited mobility in a way that only community can. In other words, in short, we make adventure accessible. That's the nutshell. So with that being said, I would like to show the community of Canyon City this video of our summit of Mount Elbert that was covered by NBC, and I think you guys will understand what we do a little bit better. So, whenever you're ready.
If we don't do it, who will? You know, everything is impossible until someone does it the first time.
Jeffrey Lockwood's mantra is infectious. Videos detail how his nonprofit makes hiking accessible for people with disabilities.
We have the opportunity to make history today.
But there is nothing like experiencing it in person, where the vistas and altitude take your breath away.
How often do you get to get out, share your passion doing what you love, and share it with somebody else? It's incredible.
Zara, you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Zara Vargas lives with cerebral palsy. With the help of an adaptive wheelchair and a traveling party of 70, the Lockwood Foundation took aim at 14,440 feet.
Mount Elbert is a Herculean task. It's Colorado's highest peak, and these volunteers are going to push and pull Zara all the way to the top.
The final 2 miles of the East Ridge Trail are treacherous, with a gain of 2,000 feet in elevation. The tears began when the goal was in sight.
It's right there.
Are you a little emotional? Yeah, you're a little emotional. It's good. It's a good. Me too. Me too.
On a picture-perfect day, many believe the South African became the first wheelchair user to reach the summit.
Let's give it up for the bravest woman on the mountain today, Zara Vargas.
I hope we can change the narrative on what outdoor recreation can be for people with disabilities.
That's coming from a man whose foundation not only climbs mountains, it moves them. Reporting for 9 News, I'm Aaron Anderson.
If we don't do it, who?
All right, so that's what we do. We take on the biggest mountains and the most local trails from A to Z. What we want to do in Canyon City is we want to bring access to local trails that are simply inaccessible by nature. We don't have the technology or the processes to build an accessible trail up every single mountain, so in the meantime we have to have a stopgap. And this is what we've found to be the answer. Community is the answer. Technology is the answer. Mount Elbert was an incredible experience. It was the only time that has ever been done, that someone who uses a wheelchair was able to summit the largest peak in the Rocky Mountains. And that person is here today. Zara Vargas is here today to share that experience. I mean, Zara was here in basically day one starting the organization, and this was something that we looked at as something that has to happen. In the video, it was said, if we don't do it, who will? This was what was said about 3 times at our first board meeting, proto-board meeting. We weren't even a board yet. But we realized that the answer to this was something that the pieces were there, but no one was going to do it in the way that we intended. We actually have 3 individuals, Sonia, Burl, and Chris here today as well, who have ridden. They're all citizens of Canyon City. Am I saying Canyon City? Mm-hmm. Okay, I just want to make sure. For the record, I know this is, I'm relatively 5 years new to Colorado, so I don't want to be the guy. Okay, so that being said, Burl, Chris, and Sonia have all been in our trail rider chair. That's what the chair is called. They've gone out to Pueblo West, Lake Pueblo with us on the trails. They want to explore the trails in their own community, and that's why I'm here today. I have access to all the trails in Colorado that I can get to and that I want to access. There are people in this community that want to access their own trails. And that's, again, that's why I'm here. I'm not here for me. I'm here because citizens with disabilities in the southern Colorado region have asked me to be here to ask permission for us to operate in the way that we do. I'm going to move on to an important topic here, and this is why we're really here. It's an introduction and to explain the difficulties that we've had when we don't do it this way. So there are kind of two avenues for us to go about our operations. One is to go through the commercial guide large institution permit system, which oftentimes requires us to spend 6 months preparing for an event day. It's different with every city, county, and government public institution, but typically there is a wait time, there's a processing time, and oftentimes there's a date or a date range. In many cases, this means that if we have a weather day, the opportunity is off. It's done, it's over. Wait until next year. The problem with that is that we have no less than 5 riders with terminal illness. It's just not appropriate, it's not acceptable. We can't operate within that range productively. Just to be clear, in terms of guide companies versus community organizations, a lot of the criteria that justifies these permit systems are preservation, oftentimes related to commercializing events, permanent or semi-permanent infrastructure, and a charge, a cost to a service. We don't have any of these. We don't commercialize our events. There's no cost for our service, if you would call it that. We're a community of hikers, ultimately, sharing a little bit of our strength. But we have had plenty of times where we've arrived in a parking lot for an event, even being told by the authorities in the area that we're in good standing, we're in good shape, do what you do. And we've had to have had an all-out ADA battle in the parking lot because tickets were half written out. And that is a huge issue for accessibility. Because in that scenario, and please let me know if I'm not being clear, like how this all works. We show up, we're ready to go. We're gonna hike together like any other hiking group. There's no guide service. Nobody's being charged anything, there's no commercialization. We don't even collect donations on the trail because it makes it a gray area. And then we'll have an authority tell us we're not allowed to be there without a permit. And effectively that means that our riders, your citizens, are told to go home, but I can stay there and hike. And that is a hypocrisy that has led us to being here, rather than working from the ground up and asking for permission to start with a city council and say, like, we need your help from the top down to make this possible. Because, our hikes are 3 hours long. If we spend an hour trying to get out of a $500 ticket for our rider, the organization, every volunteer there, our riders won't come back. Zara, can I share Waterton Canyon? Is that with your permission? I'd like to share a story related to this, just to let you know how important this is. And this is a common issue. Zara and I went to Waterton Canyon. It's a wonderful state park. The employees there, the management is amazing. We ran across one ranger there who decided that Zara's service animal was not welcome there. Pulled in front of us, wrote us out a ticket. I was scared to death. I thought, I'm broke. I'm broke. I don't have the money to pay for this. Zara is going to get a ticket. I'm going to get a ticket. And I realized, and maybe I'm wrong, but I had this sensation that Zara was never going to come back to this place. And it changed my perspective on the way we look at permitting. Permitting is required. It has to be there. We can't have commercial operations running on our public spaces unmanaged, setting up infrastructure that destroys our natural resources. Our organization is basically a hiking club that has to fundraise for these chairs. They're the better part of a down payment on a house. There is an element of fundraising to our organization, but we are not a commercial institution. So today is one part introducing who we are, what we do, why it's important, and it's a second part finding an avenue to explore how to avoid these problems in the future. We have not visited Canyon City yet. We have done 4x4 adventures in the beloved Phantom Canyon and Shelf Road, and we've been in the wet mountains, but we haven't been in the city itself. And the more jurisdictions you're involved with, the more these problems tend to pop up. And so there's an opportunity basically to create a relationship rather than going from sort of this ground up approach where we have to ask permission at each level. And we have rangers calling their management, trying to figure out if the ADA applies to this or not, which is a ridiculous deterrent for anyone coming out to our events. Our two choices are basically to do this parking lot ADA war or to not come to communities that don't want us there. And so we've just found that, hey, rather than go to the administrators, who are honestly trying to do their job in the best of their capacity to protect our public lands, but to talk to the elected representatives of the cities that we want to operate in and say, here are your people, I can hike here, please allow us to allow them to hike here. That's why I'm here today. We are exploring, to go into the realm of synergy, we are exploring the Point Alta Vista Trail on 10/16. We might have a little bit of two events going on at once, possibly, but they have built a wonderful trail, and your citizens want to go there. And what do I say? It's not on the schedule yet, but we have an opening, and we would love to be there, and we would love to share Point Alta Vista, if I'm saying that correctly, with Sonia, Chris, Burl, and anyone else who would like to see it. So we are here asking the community and leadership of Canyon City to allow their citizens on the trail by allowing their own family, friends, and neighbors to eliminate the access barriers by giving their own strength without the restriction of access limiting permit systems intended for commercial and large infrastructure organizations. In a nutshell, we are asking for permission for our wheelchair-using citizens to access the trails as I, an able-bodied individual, would be able to. I'm kind of at a loss to summarize that and just say that this has to happen and we need your leadership doing it. I don't know what the answer to this is formally. That's why we're here, I think, exploring this. I don't know how to ask for this permission. It would be very easy for the city's leadership to say, well, it's really easy. You just go through the permit system and then we're back to square one of a weather day or some sort of circumstance. So I just wanted to come here today, introduce you to what we do as a community organization, and hope that we can explore ways to eliminate this last single barrier between trail access. I want to thank you for allowing me to both present and advocate today. I know that together, I believe that together Canyon City can really be a world leader in trail access. So thank you for allowing me to present today.
So I'll go first. Do you prefer Jeff or Jeffrey? or-
Jeffrey's fine, but whatever you like.
Oh, great. Well, Jeffrey is fine. Should I ask you what your mom calls you?
Jeffrey.
Jeffrey is fine.
Jeffrey William, and you'll see.
Yeah, that's right. I've been there, done that. So you talk about getting a ticket, and what you mean is a citation of some rule or regulation that has a monetary penalty associated with it?
Yes, sir. Typically, we've never received one.
Mm-hmm.
We've always escaped this because the ethics, the morality, and federal law pretty much state that if there's an individual in a direct care role, they're allowed to be there, period, end of story. And the reality is that these individuals trying to do their job to the best of their ability don't know those rules. And if we say, hey, here's the law, we have to argue typically for some time before that happens. And it's a huge, it is an amazing deterrent. I mean, our volunteers get tight, and you can see they don't want to be there anymore. They're not welcome. It's a huge issue, and it's only because this access creating wheelchair is there. It is the one barrier. It is usually regarding not having a permit for some sort of guiding activity, which is usually depending on what region you're in or jurisdiction, it's usually regarding cost or exchange of money, commercialization, some of these examples that I gave.
Thank you. Amy, did you have some questions, comments?
Yes, thank you so much, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you also so much for what you do. I mean, enabling everyone to be able to explore what our region has to offer, I think is absolutely invaluable. And just thank you for the work that you do, and thank you for showing us that video. I think sometimes a picture is definitely worth 1,000 words, and that was truly a testament to what you are able to accomplish with this organization. I have a couple of questions because I don't know, so I want to get smarter. Do we require permits on any of our trails?
We require permits for events. I don't know that this would qualify as an event for the same reasons Jeffrey has stated. The one caveat or the one hitch in this is you've got city trails, but you're not in the city limits. You're in the county. So I think there'd probably be a little bit of due diligence that needs to be done there just to make sure. But, as far as accessing the city trails, I don't think there's any issue from the administration side.
Okay. Because we have FAR here, do you happen to know about the county? I'm happy to follow up offline, but would love to tap into your expertise.
Yeah, I can tell you. So for the Royal 50, for example, we fill out a temporary use permit through the county, the Planning and Zoning Department. But we have a liquor permit involved. I don't know if we've just always done it. So, and we notify the sheriff, we notify the County Department of Transportation, we notify the State Department of Transportation. So there might be some sort of permit required. Again, it's called the temporary use permit if you're accessing an event off of a county road in a county property. So.
But that's just for events and not necessarily for, if FAR as a 501c3 was going to do a guided hike or
We always consider them events because they're insured. So if we have something where a group gathers, we always insure it. And if it's insured, it's an event, and you put your logo on it, you put your name on it. For us, it's an event. If you're utilizing a trailhead and you're, putting people on that trail, county.
Sorry.
Here, as somebody who's guided in nearly a dozen different ranger districts of the National Forest, this is totally different. Each one of them decides on their own. There are rules that are subjectively interpreted by each park ranger or permit officer, and they decide. The ones we've worked, when I've worked as a guide, there are certain protocols that you always follow. With the nonprofit, we had an event on the Bar Trail where we worked with the Forest Service, and they said absolutely, you do not need to file a permit for this. That's ridiculous. Go have fun. This is the approach we get into, but it's up to those individuals to determine the subjectivity of that in every single institution. And this would be one of the institutions that we'd be working with. So we would have to have a similar process with the county in order for us to have, and just to clarify again, our events are, if we're to call them events, which is a subjective term, what does that mean? We do hikes together. There's usually about 10 or 12 of us.
Yeah. So, and that's that's what I was just about to say is that, the difference between a public event that FAR puts on versus a private event where, this is an invite only or, type of situation where I don't see that where a permit would actually be necessary. Part of the reason for creating Point Alta Vista was for accessibility. We did want something that was going to be more ADA accessible, and we're still looking at trying to find ways to make that happen without necessarily the needs of your particular organization, even though we're happy you're here, but we don't necessarily want that to be a barrier. We want to have better accessibility so everybody can enjoy Point Alta Vista, and we're continuing to work on that.
Absolutely, and I point out I have not been to Point Alta Vista yet. I've been recommended it. But I know. This is why we have to go as a bunch of friends. We have to go hike Point Alta Vista, and we take all of our community with. But we were recommended by so many people within this community and then when honestly Sonia said, I want to go there. So what do I say? Okay, here we are. Let's work this out. We'll figure out how to do it. But the reality is that if our very small baby organization, our hiking club, if you will, has to go through all these loops for every single trail, we'll never do it. It'll never happen. In fact, we have to look for partners that say, hey, we're going to pull this barrier out for you. You're already breaking through stuff that effectively no one has broken through yet as far as access barriers.
So I think what I'm hearing is that there isn't an issue from the city side. We don't require any permits. It may be worth a conversation with the county as well, and we could certainly make those introductions if you don't already have.
And I don't even know, for Point Alta Vista, depending on where you're accessing from, it is going to be the key. So there's the parking lot that was built by the Royal Gorge Ranch, and technically I believe that's a private parking lot, even though we have an agreement there. We could make that introduction for you. As far as accessing the trail, which is a city trail, I don't think we have any issues there. And it may just be an introduction to the owner of the Royal Gorge Ranch, so he knows what's going on, and
Absolutely.
have
And
you hike.
having an opportunity like this to stand before the city council, and then if we have that parking lot battle to say, hey, we've sat before the city council, unless I'm misinterpreting, we're on the understanding that we're in great shape.
Yep.
Versus having to fight the battle in full and that's okay. It happens. I understand why it happens. That's why we've changed our direction and how we approach these things.
And, you know, I'd be happy to provide a letter as well on
That
city
would-
letterheads.
That would be wonderful, Ryan. Thank you.
So I actually have a question there. Let's turn this around a little bit and ask ourselves a question or two. Because I think it'll be instructive for you to understand how we, as the city, if I can say that, expect the trail to be used. But Ryan, on the Point Alta Vista Trail, who would or how would an individual be denied access to the trail for some use of it? So it would take some public event where the public is invited, that was someone trying to go out there conducting a public event without talking to the city. Is there a permit that would be required for that, a special use permit or something?
Yeah, so typically for events, what we do is we have an event agreement or some type of agreement between the city and the organizer to, you know, spell out, you know, as Ashley was saying, the insurance and the expectations and, you know, the leave no trace type of mindset to make sure that, you know, if there is damage to the trail, that somebody's going to repair it and all those types of things. But, you know, again, we're talking, you know, these events are, you know, fairly large.
So, right, and so.
50 or more people, 100, you know.
So if such an event was occurring without coming to the city first, what would the city's reaction be? How would the city react to something like that? I mean, if we heard, hey, there's 100 people out here at this parking lot and they're, you know, doing whatever, and how would the city try to stop something that was outside of our rule book?
Yeah, we would it'd probably be the Parks Departments that would be trying to figure out what's going on, and you know, trying to find out who the event organizer is to, you know, figure out what's happening.
And you're seeing kind of a little bit of confusion up here because we've never had to do that. And that's actually a good thing, because really what the turn it around the appropriate way now, what we're really talking about is public use of a public trail and a private group's use of a public trail, and there are no requirements for that right now.
The only other caveat there is, I would say, making sure that they're, you know, calling in advance to make sure that there's not an event going on that has exclusive use through that agreement for use of a particular section of trail.
And
you know, being able to work through that.
And if I could, in the future, something that the city may want to look at is to make sure that if a private group is using a trail in this fashion, and it's a challenging trail, like to the top of Mount Ebert or something like that, I think that the city's interest would be in notification, so that if there were some happenstance that required assistance from first responders or something like that, that there could be some kind of discussion or at least alerting the appropriate people that something like that is going on and could require something. And that's only for public safety. That's not to prohibit or engage in the parking lot wars, but just to make sure that services are available, people are aware in the first responder areas that something like this was going on. But I don't really think that we have any ordinance in this area. Would that be a true statement?
Yeah, and again, you're in the county, so it's more about an agreement to use the city's property.
Yeah.
So it's not really an ordinance thing when you're outside of the city limits.
When you're outside the city limits, but as far as the city is concerned, the use of a public trail by a private group
Private group, yeah.
is the only thing that we would want to know is there going to be some conflict with something that has a permit? But other than that, there really isn't, any barriers that I'm aware of.
And that's really, I think, because we don't want you to assemble everyone and then show up in the parking lot and be turned away, just as any other citizen of Canyon City would be turned away, because there was already something planned on that trail on that day where they had exclusive rights and agreements to it.
And we try to publish that, and, we promote those events as well to make sure that the public knows. We had an announcement today that went out saying the splash pad's going to be closed because of the event in Centennial Park. So we try to make the public aware when there are going to be closures like that.
And that is what we're asking ultimately, is for our riders, our adventurers who are limited in their mobility to be able to access these parks in the same way, through the same protocol as I do.
Sure.
And if we have to call an
Absolutely.
administrative office to ask for permission, a permit, or otherwise, it's one thing to check a calendar. Obviously, we're on our own personal responsibility to make sure there's not a permit that allows the exclusive use. And that falls upon me to not let our community down. But these additional barriers have been created, and it's really too easy to add them. That's the reality. And until it's phrased in the sense of, well, I can just go, right?
Yeah.
I can access your trails, all right, I'm allowed to? And anything beyond that, if we get shut down, I mean, I appreciate genuinely your concern about that, because that's something I deal with every single event. I have to make sure we don't have an existing, because there are trails that will be closed and they're exclusively used. It's tricky, but we have all these other barriers to try to skip, hop, jump over, hurdle, and crawl under. It's a breakdown that, not having these in a traditional permit sense for something that doesn't fit the bill is really important. And Ryan, I really appreciate you acknowledging that we don't fit in there. And we never have. We've never fit into that. No matter whether we talk to a city park, state park, we're working with the Colorado Parks and Wildlife ADA coordinator. She has sworn hand over foot that if we have any problems in those parks, call her on her day off. Like, I mean, this is what happens when we get to the right administrators. But the problem is it goes both directions in terms of, do we go up to city council and make sure that these laws are appropriate or these rules are appropriate? Do we need to change them? They don't have that authority.
And we greatly appreciate you taking the time to come here and explain your organization and explain the mission to help prevent some of those problems, because we want all of our citizens of Canyon City to be able to access our trails. That's why they're there. Yep. So thank you for that. And with that in mind, Mayor Pro Tem, would it be okay? I know I've had the pleasure many times of interacting with Sonia, and I just met Zara tonight, but would it be okay if we invited some of our public to make comments about this if they'd like?
Sure.
I'm so sorry, I don't know your name. We haven't had the pleasure yet.
Rob Gilkerson. Just real briefly, as long as the city doesn't see this as a solution to providing true access at Point Alta Vista, I'm good with it. And same with other trails that could be accessible. I don't want this to be seen as a solution.
Okay.
Because you still, I think, you have your ADA obligation to make those trails as accessible as possible within guidelines.
Yep, I completely agree with you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that clarification. I think that's really important, and absolutely. Thank you for noting how much the city agrees with that, Administrator Stevens.
Okay, anything else you'd like to tell us, or?
I would love to just clarify. I know you mentioned first responders, and I don't think it was exactly in this context that I'm about to mention, but we typically have at least a handful of first responders on our adventures, anywhere between doctors, nurses, EMTs, paramedics, wilderness first responders, wilderness EMTs, and an assortment of other medical professionals that have the basic skills. And I know that wasn't exactly in the context, but it's just sometimes we get this, we're not so much in our fourth year now, but in our first year we were pretty nuts what we were doing. And we had to make sure we had these protocols, platforms, and safety nets to ensure that what we're doing is no different than what anyone else is doing on the trail. It's just inclusive. It's just allows everyone to participate. So, but we really do take the safety elements of our adventures as serious as any mountaineering adventure.
Agreed, and that was my area of concern, is making sure the safety nets are ready to be used if needed.
I'd love to give you a list of them sometime if you're interested. Any other questions? I'd love to answer anything. Any questions or thoughts or concern, even concerns.
Ryan?
Yeah.
I would like to go ahead and just say, Jeffrey, I apologize for not being there today. My name is Tim Dennehy, and I'm on council. I've been driving from Colorado Springs to Denver, and I've absolutely enjoyed this conversation. This is something that is personal to me as a, just because I know a lot of people who are in that disabled world, and they're not disabled. It's just sometimes, you know, there's some things that are put in front of them. And I just want to commend you and all your volunteers, because I think this is an outstanding thing that you're doing, and I think it's something that we can all work on. And I think it's us, the city council, and you know, in Canyon, I'm aware of our trails, and I think we are pretty open. But I just want to say thank you for what you do, and I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you, Tim. I really appreciate it. And my closing statement would be somewhere along the lines of, you know, our mountains, the trails, the rivers, the valleys, the canyons, you know, these are the reasons most of us live in Colorado, came here or have decided to stay. It is so important that everyone gets to access those trails. And there is no substitute for accessible trails, but some trails will always be so rugged that they need something else. And if modification of the trail is not the option, then community might be for some of the hardest trails. And we want to bring that. I believe I can tell by far that the community here is invested in their trails and their accessibility and the outdoor recreation opportunity. I know there are communities here of hikers that will lift, push, and pull people who cannot do it themselves. I just know it. So thank you again for allowing me to present today.
You're welcome, and thank you.
Sonia, did you?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, since I've gotten to know Jeff, I just started following him through Facebook last year during the pandemic. Yeah, we do definitely need to, you know, Jeff is wanting to take people up steep mountains and all that. We do definitely still need to make trails like ADA compliant, but I ski, and I started skiing in 2000, and anyway, you know, I've only been able to see the mountains up high in the winter, but being able to see them high in the summer and the spring. With Jeff, I did an actual 4x4 trail ride, or Jeep ride. That was pretty an adventurous trip, but it was a lot of fun. And I got to know them well, him and Zara and her helper. And so I definitely am very thankful to have gotten to know Jeff and the Lockwood Foundation, because I have only been here 3 years in Canyon. And so I'm used to a lot of adventures and doing all kinds of things. So I'm really thankful you guys are open to letting him do a trail ride down here. I really think it'll be an awesome thing. And as you know, I think you do, Amy. Me and my team, Brill and Chris, we have an advocacy group going, and with the help of Rob Gilkerson, we have made a huge change in this city, and that's what we want to continue to do. We want to make things inclusive. I want to bring everybody out, and like Ashley, she's willing to work with us also. Like I have explained to her, we want to do a 5K walk and roll down here in Canyon, and it's great to have the dirt roads, but for a person in a wheelchair, that's a little hard. So we're wanting to find a location that's paved. And I did mention to Ashley maybe Main Street. And I found out yesterday that the Blossom Run about 20 years ago was run on Main Street. So we could do even a 5K on Main Street. I know that's a little bit hard with businesses, but I have gotten to know the businesses here in Canyon by being a part of the small business networking group. And I think they are all open to us doing that, you know, possibly, and maybe making them sponsors. So, and I also want to share with y'all, we are doing an ADA celebration in Pueblo this Saturday. Me and Chris are part of that, and Burl, he's going to be a vendor for us. It's at the Rawlings Library, and Jeff is actually going to be one of our vendors. He's going to demonstrate his chairs and all. So that is from 9 to 3 on Saturday at the Pueblo Rawlings Library. So.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
My name is Burl McCullough, and I've lived here in Canyon for about 30 years. I'm a double amputee, and back in the older days when we were able to do things, I had horses and I was able to go see mountaintops on the back of a horse. That's no longer possible for me. So one of the things that you know as being a disabled person is you experience a series of losses. I was able to go to Jeff's event in Pueblo, and it was freedom. We get to experience freedom, and we so miss that. And everybody's soul and spirit is lifted by getting to experience that. So I just hope that you all will really support this, because I think one of the things about Canyon that Sonia and I talk about all the time, and Chris, is, you know, people stay home and stay out of the way because there's nothing to do. You know, if we can make opportunities, more of us can enjoy our world, our community. And disabled people just want to have an opportunity like anybody else. We're no different. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think we're ready for our next presentation about the Fremont County Tourism Council.
Thanks, everybody, for being here. Brian Jordan with VistaWorks. We're the agency that works for the Fremont County Tourism Council in tourism promotion, marketing, destination management, that sort of thing. Really, I'll try to keep this fairly short, but what we found is that government officials, business owners, residents, they don't all understand the importance of tourism and how it impacts them. They see the negative things, and what we've decided as a council to do is to try to spread the message, especially of the importance of tourism on the economy of the region and how that positively affects all of those groups. So I'll go through that real quick. I get my own clicker here, that's right. So quickly, the mission statement of the FCTC is to responsibly budget and spend the allocated lodging tax dollars collected in Fremont County to increase visitors to the area and thereby have a positive economic impact to the entire region. Tourism's big in Colorado. Everybody knows it, especially with COVID sort of really changed the tourism landscape. Someone called it a renaissance, and I sort of like that term, especially with areas like Fremont County. Denver, Colorado Springs, the big urban areas shut down. People wanted to get out, and they came to areas like here to get away from everything. So we saw an influx of visitors and usage of trails and things like that during COVID, and that will continue to happen. In Colorado, $24 billion was spent in 2019, almost 87 million visitors to the state, and 180,000 jobs in specific to the tourism industry. So what does that mean for our area? I love showing these numbers because I see shock on everyone's face, but visitor spending in Fremont County averages almost $200,000 per day. That's a big number. I can tell you it's 50 million or 80 million and give you that number, it goes over your head, but if you look at that and say, gosh, I can buy most of a house with that every single day, it means something to you. In Fremont County specifically, approximately 1 in every 10 jobs, 10% are tourism related. And taxes generated from visitors and visitors alone amount to $4.8 million. If we told drew a big wall around the area and asked no visitors to come in, every household in Fremont County would have to write an additional check of $280 annually to make up for that tax that visitors provide. So let's dive into the economic impact. I love numbers. Not everybody does, so if I talk too much about math, just yell at me. In a 10-year period from the 2011 to, well, the graph you see here, the lodging tax has increased by almost 100%. If I could exclude the COVID year of 2020 here, it would be about 120% increase. And just so you know, lodging tax, any visitor that comes to the area, stays in a hotel, campground, anything like that, they collect a 2% tax. That tax is remitted to the state, sent back to the county, and the statutes of Colorado require that that be spent on marketing of tourism. Visitors pay this tax. Locals do not pay this tax unless they decide to stay in a hotel. So all of this tax and economic benefit are from people who are spending time here. Over the same period, the economic, or the amount of money spent in this region was $646 million. That's a huge number. It's almost unfathomable. This is solid research. The state tourism office, Colorado Tourism Office, spends or pays firms to research this and produce this data each year for every county and for the state itself. So I'm not making these numbers up. They do come from a valid source. That means that over this 10-year period, the spending in the area increased by 21%. So in the black here, back in 2011, we're looking at a $56 million in travel spending, and then even this last year, $71 million. That means if we do a little bit of math and we look at the FCT's budget, lodging tax, approximately $200,000 or so a year, 116,000 here, 230,000 here. For every dollar that we've spent on marketing and advertising, $345 has been contributed back to the economy of Fremont County. It's pretty powerful, so I'll leave that up here. If you guys have questions, you can ask me later. The Tourism Council itself, it's a volunteer board. There are no paid positions on the board. There's 7 folks. You know, we're all about promoting and developing sustainable tourism. So I mentioned extra people coming to the area. Ashley and I have talked about this whole gravel biking idea because it's an additional asset, it's an additional activity that people can come and enjoy, that's a low impact, that's easily produced, and is something that people want to do that keeps them here longer. Efforts that the Fremont County Tourism Council do are 100% visitor funded. So again, there's no tax that locals pay for that. We do a lot of building and creating awareness for the brand, the Royal Gorge region, and as is with most tourism and destination marketing, visitors are kind of the first step to economic development. People come to an area and say, I love this place, I'm gonna move here. I'm gonna retire here, I'm gonna bring my business here. And we've got countless examples of local folks who have done that. Those people start businesses, they contribute to the sales tax and the tax revenue of the city grows, and everything's wonderful. How's that? Here's some of the marketing assets. I'm not gonna read through these, but a lot of the typical things you might expect. We, of course, produce a website. We're continually updating content on the site, Facebook. We have an internal council page on Facebook that it's announcing things that the council does. Much like we're doing this presentation, we want the public to see the types of activities that the council is participating in. Instagram, YouTube, video is very powerful, so we're producing video all the time. We have 115,000 subscribers on our newsletter. We get a ton of press. And if you want to see kind of the types of things that the press are providing for us, you can visit this media page right here. We're actually bringing in influencers and journalists in here, a bunch of them. We've just had a huge interest very suddenly after COVID sort of let up, and we're bringing them in about 3 weeks from now, people that write for Outside Magazine and 5280 and NPR, big publications. They'll be here in a few weeks, and we're giving the kind of the royal tour, so to speak. Lots of activities planned and things like that. That's a quick snapshot of the website. These are 2020 numbers, but about 160,000 visitors per year, about 450 page views. These are just stats that I'll breeze through real quick. We do produce a printed, glossy color visitors guide that is distributed across Colorado in racks in like hotels and restaurants and things like that, and the visitor centers. It's a high quality publication. We're very involved in the design and the content of the publication. And this year, one of our goals is to revamp the style, modernize it, redo the content, new photography, stuff like that. 5% of our budget approximately is, according to our bylaws, guaranteed to go back to the community to fund events or nonprofit organizations that will bring people to the area. So things like car shows and Whitewater Fest and things like that. We accept applications once per year. Folks need to have a decent sort of plan, marketing plan. We evaluate those and fund them. So last year, we had over 12,000 in grants awarded. We believe strongly in this idea of Leave No Trace. We're a founding member of the Care for Colorado Coalition. We work closely with Barb Bowman in the tourism office, and we want our visitors to take care of our home. And I use that analogy a lot. We're inviting them into our home, and we don't want people coming into our house that we don't know, that we don't agree with, that don't believe in the same things we believe in. So they need to, kind of follow these principles. And so in addition to marketing the enjoyment of the outdoors and activities and such, we're also putting the message of, caring for what we have here. And it's especially important after COVID because, again, lots of people are getting out there that have never been out before, buying campers and tents and things like that when they've never been out in the wilderness. So. This is an example of somebody that probably you guys recognize. Larry's the owner of the winery Holy Cross Abbey. He's one of these examples of a visitor who decided this was the place for him, buy a business. Now the Abbey is, a dominant force in wine, and it's beautiful, and Larry's contributed a lot to the community as an individual as well. This is Ashley's slide. If she wants to, she can talk about this. But we also support nonprofit organizations, including FAR. So part of those marketing grants I mentioned, we might FAR will ask for a grant, and we will help them in producing the printed guide or print the printed guide as well. We see that as just another one of those assets that are available to visitors to keep them here longer, to keep them coming back. So it's an important part of what we believe in. So summarizing, I told you I would be fast. This tourism thing that we love love and enjoy that not everybody understands quite. It benefits everyone. It's benefiting businesses, events, the downtown area, nonprofits. That, of course, has planks on it now. We should get a new picture. That's your trail. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And residents, residents benefit from tourism as well. So that's all I have. I think that's all I have. Yep.
No ask, we just wanted to say hi.
Yeah, we just want to spread the message about, the importance of tourism, embracing it. A lot of, we get a lot of, people come to town and they ask the person at the gas station, what is there to do? And they say, there's nothing to do. So, our job is not just bringing visitors in, but we have to educate people here and the residents and everybody why it's important to embrace that and be nice and know a little bit about your area and be able to provide that kind of advice to them if they want to go on a hike or eat at a restaurant, that sort of thing.
Thank you for that. Any comments or questions, Amy?
Well, I would just say, even before I was on council, if a visitor stopped me on the street, I would still be talking 10 minutes later, and they would say, are you with the Chamber of Commerce? Because we have so much to do, and we have so much to offer. We really appreciate the high-quality professional work that FCTC does. It was great to learn a little bit more about it. I mean, the fact that it's an all-volunteer board, and it puts out such fantastic resources for our community to showcase what we have to offer, I think is fantastic. And as a numbers person, I really appreciated you including some of those stats, because it really is amazing that is how much tourism brings in each and every day in Fremont County. So thank you for your time. I don't have any questions.
Thank you. I think then that we're at the conclusion of the meeting. And thank you all for being here. I appreciate the efforts that you've been making. We're glad to see where we can help make things better. That is one of the things that this council is focused on, mainly on the business side of the ledger. But I think it's an across-the-board thing. We definitely want to be a business-friendly community, a welcoming community, and a community that all can enjoy. With that, we're adjourned.